Hi, Book Talk Woman. Just getting everything set up. I'm trying to make it a co-host, so I'm waiting for Dan to get on live so I can invite him. I know it's a few minutes before I'm supposed to go live, but I want to make sure everything's in order. Yeah. I was, while you were on live, last night I asked Deanna to help me kind of test out the system since it would be my first co-host. So.
Bob the killer clutched and re-clutched the big knife.
You can listen to Dan's book for a minute.
He eyed his prey. 20 feet away, a lone, paunchy truck driver, his shirt wet with sweat, wheeled a third dolly of boxes onto a desolate
Still waiting on
loading
him.
dock. In the distance, past the dark warehouses and empty train cars, a boat horn blared. It cut through the foggy night, signaling another departure from the port of Tampa. Maybe tourists heading to the Caribbean. Maybe
Still
car
got a few
parts
minutes
heading to
anyway.
Mexico.
How are you doing
The
today?
killer didn't care. What concerned him, as he crouched behind the warehouse dumpster at McLean Oil, was his first victim, and how he would proceed with the murder. His .38 would do the job the fastest, but the noise might attract attention. He glanced around. There was not another soul on 22nd Street, but a gun was less
That's a lot.
satisfying.
Why are you
He
working so
learned
much?
that with raccoons and stray dogs. And you never know. Some brown-noser accountant might be working late in one of the warehouse
I've done
offices.
80 hours a week before.
No, it needed to be the knife.
Saving
He
it up,
wanted it
saving
to
up
be
for a
the
honeymoon.
He lifted it and gazed at its long, serried blade, flipping it to admire the smoother, sharper other side.
I got
The
married
honed edge glinted in the warehouse
2018.
lights.
We didn't
Through
have
his
one.
latex gloves, he gripped its thick hilt and ran his
I
thumb
decorated
along
the,
small metal
I
handguard.
rented out my union hall
Beautiful
through my work.
craftsmanship in such a large
$300
knife.
bucks
Using the knife would be
for the whole
more
weekend.
personal.
And
He'd feel the blade go in,
then I just
piercing the trucker's
got
shirt,
some wood to
sliding
Darius
through
and
soft fat and
had the
dense
whole wedding there.
organs. Then he'd feel the warm, thick wetness of the blood. Bliss. The very thought of it made him shudder in anticipation.
Still waiting for him to go
He
live. I
licked
told
his
him
lips,
that I was ready.
peering over the edge of the
I don't
rusty
know, we still
blue
have a few
garbage
minutes.
bin.
He might be busy doing
With some
something.
effort, the truck driver bent and slid the dolly from under the boxes, pausing to wipe his brow.
I do have a note here
He
that says
pulled
make
a cell
sure
phone
that
from
Dan
his
doesn't
back pocket,
give
his
spoilers.
considerable belly heaving as he pressed the button. With each passing minute, the killer's hate of this man, this stranger, grew, intensifying into a rage so he could summon the courage to go through with his plan.
Hi, Camp
He
Cam.
needed to hate this man, to despise this stranger enough to kill him, stabbing, and then instantly switch it off and enjoy the bliss, the serenity, as the trucker kicked and clawed, fighting for his fading life.
It's a few minutes early right now. We're just listening to Dan's book before he jumps on.
Quick gasps. Sweat formed on the back of his neck. He would not chicken out. Not this time. Dispatch, put me through to O'Connell. The trucker rested against the dolly, his phone pressed against his ear. He moved his head back and forth, looking skyward as if trying to get a better signal. Mac? I decided to unload the freight myself.
No, I'm not doing lives with anybody else right now.
I don't care about procedures or contract rules right now. I'm 3 hours late as it is. The dock workers will be
waiting
here
on
in 12
Dan.
hours, and I need
I just
to
Good. We have a good connection. Can you see me and hear me and stuff?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Adjust your volume here a little bit.
I jumped on a few minutes ago, but I played your double blind, the first book.
Nice. Well, I appreciate that. All right. So tell everybody who's joining us what the big event is here that we're all gathering for.
So this month is Author Appreciation Month / my 5K. So when I hit my 5K, I will close the thing, even if that ends up being after February, but I hope it doesn't. We'll see. So we are here to...
And we froze up.
Yeah. I was trying to move my tablet keyboard and touch buttons. Sorry.
It's always fun going live. So I was just saying, I look in the mirror before I do a live, and my hair looked fine. Then I sit down and it looks like a lawnmower ran over my head, and I just don't get it. And then this shirt was like, this is like a charcoal gray shirt. I get on here and it's all washed out and blah looking. So I'm like, it looked good in the mirror. I mean, I kind of dressed up for the event. I mean, I put on a clean t-shirt. So,
yeah.
But you know what? What color is yours? Is it green or is that a dark gray?
Green. It's like forest green.
So I didn't want to clash with you. I'm thinking, I'm not the star of this shindig. You are. So it's okay if I'm gray. No one cares. They're not here to, well, I don't want to say they're not here to see me, but I did try, honestly. The hair looked good a minute ago, literally 2 minutes ago.
I think it looks fine.
Down. You turn on the camera and it's like, here, we're going to just mess with you.
I'm getting all these random invites. It's only me and you, Dan.
I didn't set mine up. Last time I scheduled a live, you can set a setting where it's 18 and above, and then you invite a couple of moderators, and they go through and knock out all the trolls, and then people aren't trying to join and all that kind of crap. So if I see any of mine pop on, I'll ask them to leap into action. And I got another question for you, Amber. So yeah. I have people joining on mine, and you have people, because we both went live, and then you invited me to yours. So are we both now on yours? Or can you see, if somebody makes a comment, can we both see the comment, or just you see yours and I see mine?
Well, as of right now, I could see Book Talk Roman says I'm here.
Okay. I didn't see that.
That's the last comment on my thing.
Kristen joined, a user with a long number, L. Ewing, Kristen's Corner joined. She joined already, so maybe it's just...
We're probably both getting our own views. That's why I wanted to do co-hosts, because they can like my page and they can like your page. So we both...
Everybody who's watching my feed, tap the screen. They'll give me a quick 10 taps, and let's see what happens. So I'm at 78, I think. There we go, 93. All right, 108. All right, did your number count change at all? Your heart count? Okay, so if they may have tapped my side of the screen. If they tap you, they'll switch over to your feed, or they'll be given the option to switch over to you, right?
I believe so. I don't know. This is my first co-host. The reason why I wanted to do co-host is you've been in multi-guest, but when you do multi-guest, you can only get lives for yourself. You can't get it for the other people. Right. So with the co-host, we can both get likes.
Well, my suggestion is anybody who joins me, tap her and go on to hers. Then when you can like and follow and all that stuff, then she's getting all the benefit of the live. So
I wanted us both to get a benefit, because the whole point of this is to appreciate the authors and what they write.
Good point. Well, then
So
the other question is, if somebody's a moderator for me, can they? Well, they won't be seeing your
no,
trolls and stuff. Do you have moderators on your side?
I asked to Taylor Elizabeth to be a moderator. So, and
So,
Taylor just said yes. It gives me the option to switch to Dan's life and tap his face to give you likes.
yeah. But I think like Kristen from Kristen's Corner is watching my feed, right? So she's been a moderator for me before. So I assume if some trolls pop up, she can, smash the mushrooms on my side. But unless she's been a moderator for you before, she can't switch over and do that for you. So we each have our own teams at work here, I
I've
suppose.
never had a moderator, but I just asked, or I just went and clicked on Taylor and added her, Taylor Elizabeth, as my moderator.
Okay.
So
So
now I
you,
have one.
okay, good. So then she can, if somebody's inviting themselves and things like that, she can mute them or block them or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Got to stomp on those mushrooms. Now, Kristen over here is liking my thing here. She's been a moderator before, so I'm going to ask her, hey, Kristen, if you don't mind, smash any mushrooms that pop up. And then, gosh, I was going to say something else, and I forgot what it was. Oh, it says TikTok is telling me encourage your viewers to share your live and invite more friends. So I guess if they share it, I don't know, where's the share button? Where do you see that? Oh, down there on the right.
The little, it's down here.
The arrow.
In the corner.
So here's what I need everybody to do for Amber's live and for her side and my side. Everybody hit your share screen. Not share screen. Stop that.
Share
Hit
the live
share.
to all your followers, your
If
friends,
that's what it
your
does.
besties.
Yeah. Share it out. Spread it out. We're going to be here for a little while. You got time. How long are we going to be here? How long was the shindig going on?
As long as we need it to go on.
Well, there you go.
We don't have a set time. I mean, I put it for 2 hours, but
We'll see if we can squeeze it all in that much time. Now, for anybody watching at home, this is Crystal Light Peach Mango tea. It is not beer, allegedly.
I have my tea.
There you go. What kind of tea is that? You got milk in your tea.
Yeah,
You can have a
I
mason
do.
jar like a country girl.
Mine is chai tea latte, but I make it myself.
I got
So
the
it's
scone going on.
vanilla chai tea with honey and milk.
Yeah, it's got the milk in there because when you held it up, I'm like, that's tea. But and what
Yeah,
what
you
is
could
it?
say it's
Chai?
my version of coffee.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
so it's
like
got
coffee.
caffeine. See, I do all decaf. Some people say I just don't need caffeine, and they may be right. I had one friend who was like, we should slip him an espresso just to see what happens sometimes. Not saying I'm opposed to it. For some reason, I
Um,
only see half of each of your faces. Well, that sounds like an at-home problem there.
yeah, that's probably whatever she's using
Depends
or
on which
whatever they're
half you're
using.
seeing. I guess like you're seeing this half of me, you probably have it on wide angle or something. So we just need to lean in a little bit. Or
Lean to
lean
the
out.
outside.
Lean in or lean out? Do we lean in? Look, we're kissing.
So one of the first questions I got in my questionnaire post was, "What is your least favorite character?"
Ooh, that's a good question. So, does that mean a character that I write that I would wish I wasn't writing, or does that mean least favorite, like the most villainous evil? I think it's who I don't enjoy writing, probably, right?
Probably. I didn't get much more than what's your least favorite character. So
That's interesting. So, what did you do? Did you put out there, hey, I'm going to meet with Dan, give me some questions to ask him?
you know that post that had all of your books in a row?
Yeah, that
You,
was awesome. That take a long
so
time to put together?
yeah,
Or you
I
look like it.
screenshotted every single book photo from Amazon, and then I cropped it to where it was only the book part,
Right?
and then
That's
I
some work.
selected each and every photo. But the trick was to get them all in order. I did my best. I don't know if they all ended up in order, but I tried.
Well, in
Um,
order of book one in a series, followed by book two, three, and four, or order of publication date, because they weren't.
no, just in the series. Like double
alphabetically?
blind, primary target, you know, so on and so forth. And then the same with your other series, like your Gamma series.
You did a pretty good job of that because let's face it, as soon as I come out with another book, they're not going to be in the right order anymore, but that's
No,
okay.
but that one will be so far down on the page that
Oh, fair
no
enough.
one will notice.
So, my
But
least favorite character. That's a good question. So, well, it's kind of a villain. When I was writing the Gamma sequence, Dr. Hauser is the bad guy in that. And there were some scenes where in the first book or two, there were some scenes where he was this really rich guy and he's kind of being a bully in the boardroom type of scene. And then later on, he's been shot and everybody thinks he's killed. But since he's a genetics guy, he's going to download his intelligence and brain capacity and memories, his whole collective consciousness. And he's going to download it. First, he's going to download it into a computer, which, believe it or not, everything in those books is either exists, all the technology either exists or is currently being worked on. So downloading his whole collective consciousness. So essentially, like these, you've heard certain people like Walt Disney died and they froze his head, and the idea is if they ever cure whatever killed him, they can bring him back and all that. I don't know. But that's just hoping that taking his brain and sticking it back in somebody's body will work. Well, the brain is just electrical impulses. So it's ones and zeros. So you can do a CAT scan and EEG and all that, and you can get ones and zeros out of there. So I just said the next step, which by the way is being worked on. Next step would be just to download it, or Elon Musk is doing a Neuralink where you can amplify your brain. You can have, instead of having to go on the phone to do it, it's just implanted. So he's going to download it, and then potentially he doesn't just want to exist in a computer. He's going to implant it into somebody else. All right. So when you get several volumes into a series, several books into a series, it starts to become difficult to find good roles for everybody. And he was kind of dead at that point, and it's really hard to write for somebody who's kind of dead, kind of a computer. So it became difficult to write for him. And although he was really great to write for in the beginning, and his interactions with Constantine in book 3 and on are really good, that was probably a tough one. That might have been the toughest one because so the thing is, I can conceptualize this downloading of the brain as I just described it, but now I got to put it in a sequence that makes sense to a reader and make it dramatic and compelling to where that character still is interesting and relevant. I would say that was my most challenging and therefore probably least favorite. Nobody likes to do any more hard work than they have to.
Another question is, do you take poor reviews personally, or do you just shrug them off and think that the reviewer has a different taste in the book that you write?
So bad reviews are funny. So first, what I tell people is, if you get a bad review, that simply means your marketing reached a little too effective. It reached some people it wasn't intended for, okay? So another way to view it is, let's take one of my books, like the Gamma sequence, Six Sisters. Six Sisters is relatively new. It only came out a few weeks ago, and it's about to get its big marketing push in a few days, any day now, like within the next 4 or 5 days. But I didn't want to do it in December because everything is super expensive in December. So I just, it would have cost twice as much and been half as effective waiting till January. So it's kind of climbing along. It's got like 40 reviews. Well, the first book in that series, Double Blind, has like 1,000. So you look at Double Blind, and you're not supposed to read your reviews, but like say you're sitting at the dentist office waiting for them to call you in, and you're bored, and so you're just scrolling through. Well, how's Double Blind doing? What's our latest review say? And you pull it up, and it's like 1 star. This is garbage. This person should quit writing. And I'm like, really? So you look at, okay, it's got more than 1,000 reviews that love it. And it's got this one over here that says this is the worst thing, this guy should quit writing. And I'm like, now let me see, pal. Is it all the other 1,000 people and the tens of thousands who have read it and loved it, they're wrong? Or are you just maybe having a bad day with your one little... And then, do you take it personally? It's like, no, you kind of laugh it off. But if that's only the second or third review I get in a book, then you're like, oh, wait a minute, did I screw up? So then I click on the reviewer. If they're an Amazon reviewer, you can click on them and see how they ranked other things. And almost inevitably, if somebody gives one of my, not always, but if somebody gives one of my books a really bad review, like a 1 star, hated it, they hate everything. You go through and they're like, oh, War and Peace, hated it, too long. J.K. Rowling, amateur, kids' work, 1 star. And all of a sudden you see they either love something with 5 stars or they hate it. Hey, Dark Lotus sent us a rose. Dark Lotus is gifting me like crazy. What is 20 roses? What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
I don't
Dark
know.
Lotus, what does that mean? I shouldn't call her Dark Lotus, but I don't know if people know what her real name is.
Yeah.
Or it's just me. But I don't know what that means.
I only have. I don't see it on my end. They're not gifting me. They're gifting you.
Well, it said times 20, a rose. I think it was a rose. Sharni joined us. Hey, Sharni. Sharni's over in England. She came in early. No, let's see. Around dinner time. She had the best post today. So anyway, Amber, I apologize. I got off track there. So I don't really take it personally, but let's suppose it's somebody, some of the Amazon reviews are Vine Voice. Marilyn is one of them. I forget the last name. Sorry, Marilyn. Or some of the other people who have reviewed a lot of my work. And maybe they give it like 3 stars. I was like, dang, you liked all the other ones. Why didn't you like this one? Or even if they only give it a 4 star, I'm like, oh gosh, you liked all the other ones. So you do kind of, you kind of do. But at a certain point, you just don't, because again, I'm going to have a major marketing push happening in the next few days. And my book will, knock on wood, amass hundreds of reviews, 6 sisters, hundreds of reviews over the next 2 weeks. I really am not going to read all of those reviews. If they all come in at 2 stars, I'm going to start reading them to see what I did wrong. But they're not. If you're buying the 6th book in a series.
With how many people have already read Six Sisters, I really doubt any of that you're going to get that many. And Book Talk Women, I guess she's stressing for the 7th book because she's wondering when it comes out.
All right, so book 7 is, if you go to pre-order it on Amazon right now, which you can do, and which you should do, it says it's going to be November 2024. It will probably be available beginning of summer 2024. So let's just say May, end of May, somewhere in there. I'm about 1/4 the way done writing it. And I'm in every book, there's some challenge, like, do I want to reveal this now or do I want to hold it? I have a big reveal that I'm thinking about dropping in book 7. And then today, literally minutes ago, this is hot off the press. I was out there working out and I'm thinking, wait a minute, what if I hint at the reveal and then end the book, right? So the case is going to be closed. Everybody's happy. You make sure all your happy little people get all back to their happy place. And then you raise a question like, but how did these people know this was going on at all? And it's like, yeah, how did they know that? And then you cut to a scene where somebody who you might like or might dislike, can't say, is like, I should have done better to screw those guys over. Now, this is obviously not what happens. And then you end it right there and it's like, gasp, that person is the one who's behind all this. And half the people will be like, I didn't like that person anyway. And the other half people will be like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, right? That's not technically a cliffhanger. It's not, but I'm going to do it. That's what I'm decided. I'm thinking. So now, listen, Lorraine, Book Talk Woman. If I don't keep you in suspense, then I am not the king of twistiness. So you got to just roll with it. You got to just hold on. I've got 50 books you can read. Go busy yourself with those until you cannot rush greatness, my friend. You cannot. The process takes however long it just takes as long as it takes. Get off my back, woman. I am writing. Actually, I'm not. I'm not writing as fast as I can because I'm on here goofing off constantly. And why? Why, Lorraine? Why am I on TikTok so much? Because Lorraine, through the goodness of her heart, took me under her California wing and said, fly, little bird, let's get you some friends. And 1,000 people became my friends. And I never had 1,000 people be my friend in 2 weeks before. And it's been quite disturbing because I feel like I have to say hi to them, interact with them, and look at their posts and say hi and stitch. And I love it. But
Book Talk Woman says
it's doing a video and writing the book. I've tried. It's very boring for everyone involved.
Book Talk Woman told me to tell you it's going to be okay.
Maybe. You don't know that. You don't have a crystal ball. We don't know that.
So, I have another question from my comments. Sherry asked, I was recommended the 6th book. Should I read it or start from the beginning at the first one?
So there's two schools of thought on that. One is they're all written as standalones. The 6th one just came out. It's hot off the press. It's what everybody's talking about. Jump on it. Okay, read it. Now I have Deanna did that. She read book 6, and then she's like, okay, I'm going to go back and read book 1. By the way, I got a orangey heart on my head, which can you see
I've
that?
gotten a couple.
Yeah.
I've seen you get a couple too. So
Yeah, so it's like to me,
they're
it always
sharing
looks
the
like an
love.
apricot.
They're sharing the love, Dan. Sharing
We
the
love
love.
it. Bring it, Winkler's Twinkies. I got it wrong again. Winkler's Twinkles. I got it right the second time. Sorry, gave me a head heart, whatever that thing's called. It always reminds me of an apricot. I swear to God, it does. It's not red like a heart. It's like an apricot. So there's two schools of thought. If you start with 6 sisters, like Deanna did, you get the case starts, the case ends, case closed, right? And then there's all this other stuff, this rapport between the people, and I don't have to give you too much backstory. The readers are smart enough to pick up on most of this themselves, but there are a few things. So if you start at number 6 and you go back to number 1, it's kind of like, this is how that got there, now how that's got there, and it's really scratching some itches. The other way to view it is, if you start at 1, you really enjoy the ride more, because you don't know what's coming, and you're wondering, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? And then some of those things do happen, and they're written to be read in order, and secondarily, they are written to be each a standalone. But I can't say that they are written to be read in reverse order, or that you can just read them in any particular order. You certainly can. My advice is, it would make more sense to either read number 6 and then start at number 1, or just start at number 1. But I wouldn't go 3, 5, 2, 6. Come on now, you're just playing with fire there. Don't make it more complicated than it has to be. So this always messes me up. So people are they're talking to each other in the comments here. So the Clavet, sorry, I don't know your name, I think is talking to Dark Lotus, whose name I do know, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. So they're talking to each other, and the comments are popping up on my screen. It's like, can you guys? I don't know how that works. Oh, they.
Well, Kristen's corner jumped on mine, and she said she can actually see both of us. And I think it's because I invited you as a co-host to my live, and that's probably why it's doing that.
Could be. She was the one who could only see half of us, and we just didn't know which way to lean. Like, we'll get all in there. We just gotta lean.
So, another question is, what is the hardest part when it comes to writing for you, and does it change from book to book?
There's two hardest parts. First is just starting it all, and I'm not the first author to say that. It's like, get your butt in the seat and start writing. Maybe actually there's 3, and then there's 3 hard spots, and I'll figure out, and I'll try to decide which is the hardest. So starting it all is very hard for a lot of people. Finishing a book. I was watching a video earlier today where somebody said, I've been with these characters, I love these characters, I kind of don't want it to end. I very much felt that way several times in my books. The Water Castle was one, probably Double Blind. But I was writing Double Blind, the first one. It was not a series. It was a book. It was done. And obviously they're cops. So you could have another case. Therefore you could have another book. They worked together before. They keep working together. It made sense. It could be a series, but it wasn't written to be a series. I wrote it and I went on to a different project. But I was watching a video from an author, and she said, it was so, I kind of didn't want to finish it because I didn't want to say goodbye to these characters. And to the authors and to the readers, I say this: finish it, okay? And if you want to spend more time with the characters, just go back to page 1. There they are all again. There they all are again. It's, that's how you solve that problem. Okay, then the last part is, I was watching a presentation of a project manager. She was also a reading enthusiast. She was also an author, but her main job was being a project manager. She goes, at the 70% mark, everything stalls. And I was like, that can't possibly be true. And she's like, whether you're writing, whether you're producing a project, whether you're working on whatever it is, once you get a certain volume amassed, you've got to start looking at, okay, we cannot continue to add. We need to start working on finalizing. So my very next book that I was writing, I was kind of getting stumped, and I was like, you know what? I'm at the 70% mark. If the book is going to be 80,000 words, 70% of that is around 56,000. And you're sitting there saying, yeah, I don't need to add more elements to the story. I got to start shutting everything down. And in my stories, I like it all to come crashing together at once. All the loose ends get tied up. And then you have your big climax scene. You reveal the killer, say who done it, whatever it's going to be. And then have a little happy little short chapter of everybody riding off into the sunset. All my happy little characters are taken care of. So the hardest parts. I don't have any problem starting a story. I don't have any problem ending a story. So although those are difficult, I just understand it's part of the process. If you don't finish it, you can't publish it. So I would say out of those three, the hardest one is that 70% mark. Figuring out where you are in the story to where it's like, all right, no more adding. Start shutting it down. Start bringing it all together. And actually, you're sitting there saying, I got these 10 threads. How in the world am I going to bring all those together? And it always takes longer than I think it will as far as writing it.
Because you got to make sure you
Yeah, and you
sew
want to have
in the
all the
last
loose
of
ends tied
the
up.
stories.
Yeah, tie up all the loose ends, make sure everything, and then even then you're like, "Oh, did I get everything?" And literally, I'll be out there jogging along, and I'm like, "Oh, you know what? What about this thing? Did you address this?" So I put together a little checklist for myself. It's like, "What about this? What about this?" And I don't address them until I'm done. Then I'm like, "Okay, let's go through the checklist. Did you take care of these?" And usually, yes. If not, go take care of it.
So, yeah. Um, so this one is from D.W. Cole.
Okay.
She asked plotter or pantser, and I have no idea what that means.
Okay, so authors either kind of like outline their story before they start. They're
Mm-hmm.
called plotters. They're plotting it all out. Pantsers are authors who fly by the seat of their pants. They don't do an outline. They just get an idea, inspiration has struck, and they start writing. And they have no idea where the story's going to go, that kind of thing, okay? Now, I say everybody is a plotter or a closet plotter because you might say, oh, I got this wonderful idea about a horse called Lightning. He gets struck by lightning and he wins all the races. Okay. You got a beginning. Horse gets struck by lightning. Middle, wins all the races. Probably going to be some big dramatic thing in there on the 30% or the 2/3 mark. And then you're going to end it. You don't have your ending yet, but technically you have a couple of plot points there. Like I tell everybody, Romeo and Juliet. Boy and girl want to be together. Their parents don't want them to be together. They get together anyway. Everybody dies. 4 points, covers the story. That's the plot. So
Mm-hmm.
I plot more in detail. So I can tell you before I ever started Seventh Avenue, the next book in the series, I said, okay, I want this is going to happen. And it's in Six Sisters. At the end of Six Sisters, it says Carly and Sergio will return in Seventh Avenue, and here's a brief description of it. Sergio's younger sister gets kidnapped inadvertently during a pew pew at a nightclub, and blah blah blah. So it's like, okay, so I got to write the scene where that happens. Obviously, she gets carried away somewhere. I've mentioned a couple times she's kind of out in the middle of the swamp in a stash house for a drug lord. And so the reason the mystery starts to be, well, it's an adventure because it's a rescue story, but it's like, why was she taken? Was she intended to be taken, or was it a mistake? Originally, it just looks like kind of a mistake. And then who's behind it? So there's several mysteries, but they're low-key mysteries. The main thrust of that one is the rescue. And I thought, now, Sergio's going to go save his sister. If you're Sergio and you find out your sister's kidnapped, you're going to, it doesn't matter what the rules are. Trust us. We got it. No, he's going. That's who he is. Carly would be like, let the people do their job. And he's like, nope, it's my sister. I'm not gonna go to my mom and say, Mom, we trusted the best professionals and she died anyway. It's going to be, I did my best and I got her out of there. That's his mindset. And so Carly knows this about him. And so she's just like, he's going to do what he's going to do. We just got to make sure he doesn't get himself killed in the process or whatever. So, so I know that part. Then I know certain things are going to happen. I know in the end, I won't spoil it, but one of two things are going to happen at the end of a kidnapping. The person gets rescued or they don't. That's not giving anything away.
Well,
Typically,
even in real life, that's the way it is too.
Yeah, and if they don't get rescued, they are usually unalived or never found, which usually means unalived. So now I just have to decide, do I want to kill off Sergio's little sister? I don't. And so she's going to be fine when it's all said and done. And usually when you start out with these, like when you're reading the Harry Potter books, the fact that there's a second Harry Potter book pretty much means he doesn't die in the first one. You can look at, well, there's 6 books or however many there are. I'm guessing he's alive at least through the first 6. And then when number 7 comes along, maybe they kill him there. So the fact that I've got 11 of these books planned, you can kind of, well, I guess Sergio makes, or somebody from this story makes it through. So, so you got your plot points. And then I start thinking about what scene would I like to see? Like if Sergio's going to go save his sister, who's the least likely person he would want along with him? Like, who's going to give him the biggest headache, the most problems? And it's got to be Big Brass. It's like, so I'm going to have it be where the reason she got kidnapped was because it was her birthday the night before. And after Sergio left, Big Brass showed up at his sister's birthday party, and she asked him about nightclubs because he's that kind of guy, and he's a nightclub guy. And he said, "Oh yeah, 7th Avenue, great clubs." And so because of what Big Brass told her, that's why she was in the nightclub that got attacked, let's say. And so Sergio was like, "You're coming to help get her because you're the reason she's there, and then you're the reason she went out, and you're the reason she got kidnapped." And Big Brass will debate that till his dying day, but we all know that is what happened. So so I want to have some scenes with those two. And then I want to have some scenes with, I've mentioned this also. You got one character used to date Sergio and dumped him. Another character is kind of dating him now. And the first one is thinking, maybe I made a mistake, I want him back. So you got kind of like, okay, those two, let's make them sit side by side at a desk and work together during the story, right? So there's just all kinds of back and forth there. And that's the basis of it. So it's all kind of laid out. Now all I have to do is write it, right? I can tell you that part in 5 minutes because it's me 10 more weeks writing it all out.
Yeah. Next question is, which character have you written or created that has been your favorite?
Constantine from The Keepers that's the 3rd book in Gamma Sequence. 100% unequivocally my favorite. And the reason why is because Constantine is a genetically engineered human being. She's 4 years old. She's got the intelligence of an American high school senior, but she's modeled after my daughter. So of course she's going to be my favorite. And Keeper 27, who is kind of like in charge of watching over the child, is a great character everybody loves. Now, if we're talking adult characters, Sam, Aunt Sam from the Water Castle, from the Italian Assistant. Sam's my favorite. Sam is kind of like Big Brass in Double Blind's books because they just are these filterless people, and she just says things and, whatever's on her mind. Like one of my favorite scenes with Sam, she was going in to quit her job and her boss starts giving her the 3rd degree and won't let her quit. She's like, "This is not how I expected this to go. I thought I'd be drunk and crying in my car by now," And so she just, which is probably what a character would be thinking, but they wouldn't say it. Of course, Sam says it, She's like, "Tequila, the whore maker. I got drunk and I slept with a dang rando again," And, that's just Sam.
I think it's funny, her love of Corvettes and how she ends up crashing 2 in one day.
And her niece goes, did you wreck one of these before? She goes, "I wrecked one of these earlier today." She's like, "You drive. I don't have a license." "Yeah, but I can get a DUI, so we can't have that." She just, are there rules? Well, the rules are for good suggestions, probably, but not necessarily something to hold yourself to. One of my favorite lines. All right, if there's children listening, plug your ears. I'm not going to say any bad words, but might be a little unsavory. So in the Water Castle, they go down in the basement. Her and Gina go down in the basement, and Gina sees something that scares her, and she jumps back, and Sam jumps and starts running up this step. She's like, "What is it? What is it?" And she goes, "It's such and such." She's like, "That's it. God, I peed myself a little. Don't do that." To me, that was just like the funniest line, but I understand not everybody thinks that's a great line. I thought it was hilarious because you know what? Sometimes that happens and nobody admits it. Friggin' Sam says, "I peed myself a little, damn it." Don't do that,
I mean, people sneezed and they've peed themselves. They've coughed and they've peed themselves. And when you get scared, you can pee yourself. Like sometimes it just happens.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say typically it's not men who do that, but it is women who have had a child or two, and so there's just kind of an acceptance of sometimes these things happen, like you say. But have you ever had it in a book where somebody admitted, like, "Damn it, I peed myself a little," don't scare me like that. So
No,
I
they
thought
don't
that's a
normally
total Sam
admit
move.
that.
I thought that's a total Sam move to exactly. Winkler's Twinkles is saying it's relatable. Exactly. And that's Sam. Sam is a character who you wish you don't want to be Sam, and you don't always want to be in the room when Sam is having a Sam time. But if she's your friend and you go out with Sam or go to Sam's house, you're gonna have a good time. Something fun's gonna happen. Sometimes maybe just driving to Sam's house is gonna be a fun time. Sam is just
She's the fun friend who always tells you what she's thinking, even if you don't want to hear it.
she's honest. She'll tell you what the deal is. That's right. She'll tell you what the score is. And she does. She finally fesses up to Mike and fesses up to, I can't think of Mike's wife's name at the moment, but kind of eventually Sam tells him all the truth. And it's almost always to Sam's detriment when she does, but that's Sam. So that's my favorite character to write. She's fun. And I toned it down and made it a guy in Big Brass for the double blind stories just because it's fun to have a character like that. So in my mind, as Sergio and Big Brass are trudging through the swamp to go save his sister, there's going to be lots of times where Big Brass is just busting on Sergio left and right like Sam would. So
Yeah. Next question is, what inspired you to start writing?
So I always wrote. If I had to go all the way back, I'm talking about like when I was a little kid, I would write comic books for my older brothers and sisters. When I was in high school, I wrote. When I was in college, I wrote, stories and fantasies and I probably just, creative imagination. People always said, oh, he's got an active imagination type of thing. And so I just always did. And a lot of it, those people who write, sometimes they say I just write for myself. There are plenty of stories I've written just for me. I'm talking about, I started a paranormal series I thought could really go places. And at a certain point, I couldn't juggle as many things as I was juggling. So all right, I got to pull the plug on that one. But basically, I was writing that for me. And so it'll probably never see the light of day. I had it out where maybe a dozen people saw it and read it and were enjoying it. My sister was one of them. She liked it. And she emailed me one day. She said, you're ever going to finish that thing? I think probably not. There's in the Water Castle, there is, when it ended, people were like, oh, are you going to do a second book of this? Because we can see other threads happening. I was like, in point of fact, I wrote the opening chapter of the second book of that, but it's probably never going to get written. I know what the story is, and I've mentioned it a couple times on YouTube or in different interviews. It's not really worth getting into because it's probably never going to get written, but it could. I know what that story would be, but it's like, I kind of liked it where I ended it, and sometimes you just don't want to add on just to add on. Sometimes you just want to leave it alone where you left it.
I mean, when it ended, of course, I was crying. Because who doesn't cry at the end of Water Castle? And
Zombies
even the
don't.
next day when I was doing the review, I couldn't stop crying. So one thing that kept going through my head is because it's another like almost time travel type book, and one of my favorite books is Waterfall, which is the River of Time series. And I've read that so many times. And she has, I think, 3 books, and she even started another series of like sort of that time travel type feel. But when I finished reading The Water Castle, the only thing that went through my head was like, oh, I wonder how it happened if when she grew up and she finished college and then she found another portal to some other, travel. And I started like plotting my own version of the second book to it.
I would love for there to be some website where everybody could just write, here's what I think happens to these characters. Now, I mentioned one time that Sergio's cousin is Gina. So Sergio from Double Blind, he meets Abby, his lawyer, and she said, how'd you become a cop? And he goes, I saw something ugly happen with my uncle and how it affected my cousin, and I wanted to make sure things like that were put to a minimum. He's talking about Gina. That's his cousin. I think he mentions her by name too. Gina has decided at the end of the Water Castle that she's going to grow up and be a doctor, and she's obviously hurt and she's building up scar tissue so she can't be hurt, kind of thing again. But we all know she's always going to carry that in her heart, just like in Titanic. Like she's going to be a 90-year-old woman still dreaming about the guy she met when she was 15, I guess she was. And to a certain extent, that's timeless. And it almost doesn't matter if she becomes a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer or gets married and has children, and is a wonderful wife and mother and loves her husband. There's still going to be a place where she can go at night and before she falls asleep think about that guy, you know? And so it's almost like I feel like it was such a beautiful story. The ending just kind of came to me like, oh, I'll do this. This is such a great ending, right? Pat myself on the back there. And I wrote it in such a way where I was like, I was crying. I'm telling you, if I read that last chapter again, I'll cry. And so I said, I got to build this. It's like a funnel. Everybody who comes in, I'm going to make them go here, then here, then here, and you're all going to cry with me. Even though through the story, her friends, her mom, everybody's like, this ends this way. And she's like, and the reader willingly shrugs it off. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is ending exactly how everybody said. And I knew it, and I'm going to cry my eyes out. And then it stays with you, which is so beautiful. Sam stays with you. The lovers stay with you. Everything stays with you. And I thought,
It's like a part of your family.
yeah.
Never
And
really goes
so,
away.
and so it's the type of book where, didn't they do Peter Pan? Didn't they do another story where Wendy does certain things, or maybe Wendy grew up or whatever? It's like, you could do that, but there would be people who would hate that book because it didn't go the way in their mind that story goes, right?
Yeah.
So I wrote a start and plotted out some things for that, and what it was it was a, what's the right way to say this? It was kind of a merging of two stories. So the Navigator has time travel aspects, and so does the Water Castle, if you want to call it that. And so I was like, these people all live in Tampa. That stuff all is around Tampa. So I'm not going to pretend, if you're reading the Water Castle, that the Navigator stories don't exist. If you read the newspaper and there was something in the newspaper about the Navigator, you could read it in the Water Castle, right? Now, as it happens, people aren't doing that, but it could. And since it could, I said, they theoretically, the Water Castle is there. I mean, not the Water Castle, the Water Tower is there. If you go look, it's right there. But I thought in the story they tear it down, and I think Tommy and Stacy are walking around like, wow, it's hard to believe it was ever here. And he sees kind of like a puddle, and so that's like a hint at, was it the tower that the magic came from, or was it the water, the source from the earth? And if it was from the source, then the magic didn't go away. The structure around the magic went away, and then it's still there. And the Spanish built those types of forts in St. Augustine and Key West, off Key West. So it's like there could be a couple of places where, and that was where the Navigators people were going to come in. This kid from the Water Castle was going to go to the guy in the Navigators and say, I think this. What do you think? And the Navigator guy is going to say, you're full of crap, and no, but, and then he thinks about it that night and he's like, but maybe. And so now he's like, all right, let's find it out. So it was really going to be that, like, is this possible? Do these things exist? And then it could be, all right, you can go, we ruined the one in Tampa, but you can go to the one in St. Augustine, and maybe something could happen there. And maybe this is what the Fountain of Youth stories were all about. It was actually this, youth going back in time, right? So I kicked around a couple of ideas, but ultimately decided no, because every time I started working on it, I was like, no, I don't like where this is going. I like how it ended. I think it just needs to be a one and done, and let everybody just enjoy it for what it is.
Some books just don't need a second book, because then readers don't get to enjoy creating their own versions in their heads.
That's right. That's right. If you enjoyed it how it ended and it stayed with you and you're thinking about, I wonder this, I wonder that, there's almost no way that what I'm going to write is going to satisfy what you came up with. So I kind of can't. I'll be disappointing everybody, including me. Because if I don't do a good job of it, then I don't want to put it out there. And I started it more than once and I'm like, I can't get this to where I want it to go. So
because there's so many different versions of the story it could go into, and it makes it harder, especially with the readers, because what if she does grow up and become a doctor and gets married, and then, or she grows up, becomes a doctor, and then travels back in time and ends up running into him again? Who knows?
Sure. Takes her children and says, I want you to come meet somebody with me. And she goes and he's happy for her because might be older at that point too and married, right? And it's like, hey, it's great. We all see each other, but even that can go terribly wrong, right? And then there would be the thing where maybe her daughter has heard all these stories and her daughter does something. And now the girl in the water castle has now become the mom in the water castle, where it's like, wait, don't. Here's all the bad things that can happen. And she's like, Mom, if you were me, when you didn't listen to the no, you went for it. So there's all kinds of neat dynamics, but, and who knows, never say never, right? But at this point, I have to say never because I run every risk of screwing it up and very few risks of making it better. And the one thing I try to do, when I wrote Double Blind, everybody wanted a sequel. And I was like, I'll kick it around. I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to write a sequel unless it's better than the original. And I think Primary Target is better. You get to meet the characters for the first time in Double Blind, but
Yeah.
Primary Target has a way better villain. Different, certainly, because that guy in Double Blind is a psycho. But more smart and different. And my favorite villain is the one in Primary Target.
Yeah. Next question. Writing process. Is it organized, plotted out, or do words just word vomiting thoughts?
Hopefully not word vomit. I plot it all out. I plan it all out. And here's the beauty of that. I watched James' seminar, James Patterson, or Jim, as I like to call him, because if you spend $100 on somebody's seminar, you get to call them by their nickname. So me and Jim kicking back and, so to speak, him on the screen and me sitting at home taking notes. And he said, yeah, plot it all out and then lay out your main points and then go in and give 5 or 6 secondary points, things you want to see in those different scenes. And then every day you come in, you've got a writing prompt and it should be something you're looking forward to write. And he went on to say, and I 100% believe this, writers who suffer from quote unquote writer's block simply didn't think about it long enough and lay out the plan. They wouldn't have writer's block. So I know in my stories before I ever start, this happens, then this, then this, then this. Now, does that mean that I'm all chained up and locked in? I have to do that? No, if I come up with a better idea, I totally use the better idea. And I might be writing chapter 3 and I'm like, oh, you know what would be fun is if Big Brass interfered in some way. And now I've got some big diversion that happens. But ultimately, we're probably going to come back at some point and get back on track and keep on my outline. Now, my characters are wordy. And a lot of times they'll talk about things that got nothing to do with what's supposed to be going on. But other than that, we stick to the script.
Who's your biggest writing influence?
It wouldn't make sense. I'll say it, but it's not going to make sense when I say it, which is Mark Twain. But the simple fact is that his essays, and everybody thinks about Tom Sawyer when they think about Mark Twain, but you got to remember he wrote Ulysses S. Grant's autobiography, like volumes, and it's very serious stuff. And he wrote, his stuff has a lighthearted touch, but he's an amazing storyteller and an American classic. But that would be author, like J.K. Rowling, great author. How can you debate it? She's the first billionaire author. Why? Because she created characters you want to spend time with, and she had them go on interesting journeys. Stephen King, same deal. But storyteller is probably number one. Storyteller, if we diverge a little, widen that from author to people who tell stories, Steven Spielberg. I mean, Jurassic Park, Jaws, E.T., so many blockbuster hits that were a cultural phenomenon. You got to hand it to George Lucas with all the Star Wars stuff. Not the prequels. Not the prequels. There's one Star Wars and a couple of other almost Star Wars, and then there's a lot of other stuff you should just ignore. Sue me. That's the deal. But, I mean, but it's an adventure. The thing about Star Wars, it's an adventure. It's a romance. There's a bad guy, a big bad guy. There's life and death stakes. You know, you can watch that film from every angle, and it holds up. I mean, it's still good. Whatever, how many 40 something year odds later, 50 years later. So my favorite storyteller, Steven Spielberg. My favorite author, um, uh, I was gonna say Tom Sawyer, Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, as it were.
Just name all the classics.
There you go, Shakespeare. Got to have a little of that in there.
When did you realize you wanted to be a writer?
You know, it's funny how that works. When you ask a little kid, what do you want to be? And they're like, I want to be a fireman and a spaceman and a police officer and a this, that, and the other. Anything they watched cool on TV, they want to be that, right? And I was the same way. A little movies growing up, they'd have, we watched a lot of reruns were on our local TV station growing up. They do like you had your three main ones, and you had one or two that were oddball ones that you could get, or weird cable channels and stuff. And there was just always some channel out there playing the old rerun stuff. And so Swiss Family Robinson, I thought, was a great adventure story. And then like you name it, so many different stories. So I would sit there and I was like, I would love to, be in that kind of a movie. I would love to be stranded on an island and fighting, the attackers from the other island. And I would love to go into space. And then you think about somebody like Benjamin Franklin, who was a printer and a politician and a statesman and a diplomat and an inventor. He invented a stove and he invented bifocals and he discovered quote unquote electricity. So here's somebody who didn't say I'm an accountant and look no further. He was an author. He was a printer. He printed newspapers and he printed books. The list of things that guy did, and a lot of people are that way. Not a lot, but a lot of successful people have successful second and third interests. And so you say the little kid was right when he says, I want to be a fireman and a this and a that, because Benjamin Franklin did that. And I don't know why we decide you got to narrow your focus and be one thing, because most of the authors I meet who start writing started when they were like 35 or 40. A lot of them are in their 50s, and they're like, I always wanted to write, and I wrote all these things when I was a kid, then I stopped because life. So I never really stopped, right? So when did I decide I wanted to be an author? It was when you're little, you figure you can, right? And it's not until later where you start finding out, maybe I can't. I was in a rock band. Were we good? We wrote songs. If you listen to us, we're like, we thought we were good. That was fun, but I'm not, I wasn't willing to do the things that would require to be have that be my career. But with writing, I was. So I would write stories and I would put them out there and people would critique them. I joined critique groups. I joined author groups. I joined local critique groups, I guess, here that would meet at a Barnes and Noble and on and on and on. And I read and I studied and I looked at what is it about great stories that interest me. And I wanted to write the kind of stuff that I wanted to read, but I didn't understand that as the thing you're supposed to do anyway. You should write something you want to read. Don't write things you think are going to be popular or whatever the right way to say that is. So I always wanted to do it, and I eventually was able to do it.
Well, pretty much what you just said is like, if you're writing stuff that's popular, you're not as into it, and you can't, in my opinion, you can't develop it as much as you would if you were interested in it. Because when you're writing stuff that you are interested in it, you have more passion in the writing than you would if you try to write something that's more popular.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So let's just say, for a great example, a couple of years ago, vampire romances were like, everybody was writing them. There was millions of them. And I'd go to a what I call like a book selling event and a meet the author type of thing. And there's like 20 or 50 or however many authors. And everybody brings their, like I bring my audience and you bring your audience. And so everybody brings all their audience and there's lots of people at the event. And what I would see, because sometimes there's busy times and there's quiet times. So in the quiet times, you go around and meet the other authors. When it's busy, you stand there and meet the fans. And I did a few of them. And then I was in an association where there was a bunch of authors and stuff. And I saw so many where Well, they wrote like, again, just an example. They wrote like 5 cowboy stories because their passion was the romance of the Old West, the ruggedness and all that kind of thing, and life on the prairie, how difficult it was. And then they wrote 3 or 4, not 3 or 4, let's just say 1, vampire romance. So you're sitting at their table and it's like there's these 5 thick as heck cowboy adventure things, and then over here is this vampire romance. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty eclectic. Why did you just decide to? And she was like, well, I saw everybody buying those. I decided to write one. How does it sell? And it doesn't sell very well. Yeah, no kidding. You put all the time and effort into chasing the dollar instead of writing the story you wanted to write. And how heartbreaking after all that effort to have it be something you're not proud of, don't really enjoy, and they're not reading, and it's a lose-lose. Everybody loses. Whereas if you write like The Water Castle, I put that out there. There's hilarious parts in it. There's tearjerker parts in it. There's stressful parts in it. There's scary kind of parts in it. I wrote the story I
Cringeworthy
wanted to read.
parts.
Yeah, yeah. I wrote the story I wanted to read, and I let editors and things say, shave a little of this off, maybe change that a little bit. But for the most part, it's the story I wanted to read. And when it came down to it, that last part, the part that makes everybody cry, I was crying. Now, here's the thing that all authors, new authors, veteran authors, for what it's worth, my 2 cents, this is where they screw up. And I don't care if you're the top of the food chain author or the bottom of the food chain author, well known, not well known. I firmly believe you must put your passion on the page. What you conceive up here, great. You write it. It may or may not make it onto the page, but you have to open your heart and pour your emotion onto the page. Robert Frost said, I quote him all the time, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. If you're not feeling it, I think we choose words differently, the cadence differently, the amount of, I like a good run-on sentence. If I have somebody being emotional, they'll do a long run-on sentence, and the editors are like, you got to put some periods and commas. I'm like, no, because when people are upset, they just spew. And the words don't even always make sense, and they're just giving it from the core. And if you bring the reader along to that point, the reader's got to have it that way. But that's where everybody, when they're, especially new authors, where they hold back, it's like, well, what if somebody reads it and I'm embarrassed? You should hope somebody reads it, because a lot of what you write isn't going to be read by anybody. You should hope somebody out there, because Chris Rock, the comedian, said, the more personal you make something, the more universal it becomes. This girl falls in love, and she can't be with the boy she loves. Everyone knows what that's like. Even if they've never gone through it themselves, they can understand. They had a friend do it. They've seen it. And if the character is devastated, the reader will be devastated right along with them. There's no 2 ways about it. So how do you get there? You go to try to remember what it felt like when you were feeling that, because we've all felt it at some time in our life, and you put it on the page with enough built around it so there is nowhere else that they can go, and they'll feel it. And I believe it connects with readers. And we read one the other night, and I got a little teared up about it, and everybody else was crying along. And it's like, that's what the magic is, folks. That's what everybody's too scared to do, and not everybody has the word capacity to do it. So that's where the roller coaster ride is. That's where you go up and down.
My husband, who was listening to it, he just had to go back to work. He asked, have you ever written anything for just yourself?
Lots of things, sure, yeah. All kinds of things. I wrote bunches of stories about my daughter just because the fun we had hanging out when she was a baby and a toddler and this and that. Because of the business I was in at the time, I was able to spend a lot of time with her. And every new parent, let's say, whether they're young or not, is so busy and so trying to keep up with everything that they don't have time to capture those awesome little moments that happen all the time. And you hope you remember them, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you talk them over at dinner to your spouse, and then life the next day starts filling up your bucket and you're off to the races. So I made it a point when I got up a lot of time for those 4 a.m. feedings, because my wife had to be on conference calls and conscious at 8 a.m. And if you've had a child, many times you're not at 8 a.m. But my business was in the wine business back then, so our business didn't start till later in the day. People don't want to drink wine at 8 a.m. So I would get up with the baby and do the things, and then I would write about it, because once I'm up, I have a hard time going back to sleep. So I would write about it. So I captured so many of those moments, and I did put them out. I published them, and then I wrote more And I wrote a lot of other stuff that, if I wanted her at some point to have her privacy and not worry about, oh, my dad's going to write a story about this, me and my friends getting together doing these things. So I stopped. But there was a volume of work in there that I wrote and would have published, but she was now in school, first grade, second grade, and that book would have come out and her friends could have read it. And it was nothing embarrassing, nothing bad. But it wasn't fair to her for me to decide, I'm going to tell all these stories about us. It's like, hey, you're part of that too. And you're a person and you exist and you have friends. And so every single one of those, I wrote just for me. The fact that I published quite a few of them, that's fun. Obviously, I didn't publish the times where she and I were yawning at each other or when she got in trouble and I had to ground her. Probably didn't write about that. That's not a book you go read.
Yeah. How important are reviews?
It's a great question and different from the earlier question. Let's suppose you don't know two authors and you're looking at, both these books sound good. Which one should I choose? They're both murder mysteries. One has 1,000 reviews. It's got an average of 4.5 stars. Okay. The other one has 10 reviews. Also 4.5 stars average. You're probably going to go with the one with the more reviews because too many people have said it's good. 10 people, I don't know. Or a book with no reviews. And that's just what do we call it? It's a group approval kind of thing. It's like a lot of people have said it's good. It probably doesn't suck. Whereas this one, it could be niche. Maybe those are 10 friends of his. Maybe there are 10 people who don't know good writing. But if you get 1,000, you're like, I guess it's good. So reviews are important for that reason. Reviews are also important to help market. It is much easier if you have, even if it's only 10 reviews, more than one person saying something good. You can go through the reviews and say, this person said it was good. This person said it was amazing. This person said it was better than Frida McFadden. Ooh, that's a name people know. Let me move that one and put that in part of the advertising. Better than Frida McFadden. Not to pick on Frida, but you get the idea. So when people say those things, that becomes important. And if that's in a review, I'm not sure about this, but I think the spiders, the creepers and stuff that grab information off the internet, they see, oh, he's been favorably compared to, Michael Connelly and James Patterson. So it kind of starts to connect. Hey, if you like James Patterson book, you might like this guy. And then if it sends that out to 10 people and a fair portion, whatever the number would be, do like it, then it knows that's a successful ratio. We'll make more money. The Amazon bot crawler thingy, we'll send that out to more people. So all that can be great. By the same token, let's suppose that you have a book that comes out and it's just crapped on. The first 10 or 20 reviews are all like, this is terrible. In my case, it's probably not poor writing. It's going to be something that, like say I talked about, I don't know, child suicide or something that people who've read my stuff aren't going to want to read. They'd be like, this is, like I'm an advocate of child unaliving or something, right? Something that would get my base to say, hey, no, we don't want this. Then that's going to trounce it and bury that book and it's just never going to sell. So reviews are important. And one thing that book talkers should occasionally do, I love the fact that they share a review on TikTok, but Amazon is a selling point. That's a platform that's made to be selling. So if you like a book of mine and you do a video review, that's awesome. Take 10 seconds and jump over on Amazon and say, 5 words, love this book, better than Frida McFadden, whatever you want to say. Short and simple. You don't have to do a whole book review. You don't have to write 500 words. You can just say, I loved it, or, I love this series, or I love these characters, and that'll take care of it. And now we're kind of flying solo here. I have abducted the thing. So here's what I'm going to tell you. If you got a question, fire away, and we'll take it from there. I saw you get up and walk away, so I'm like, I'm going to take over now.
No, I was getting a scam likely call. I have to make sure it's not an important call because I am waiting on doctors to call me back. But impressed, Eli, as a first-time reader, what book do you recommend to start with?
Well, we talked about this earlier. I think the Double Blind series, start with book 1. But really, there's nothing wrong with starting with Six Sisters, which is the 6th book in that series, because they all work as standalones. And since Six Sisters is the newest one, you get a fun little, I get to read and enjoy this book. It's got a great ending. And then you go back and say, like Deanna is doing that. you go back and say, wow, the first book was good too. And the second book was good and for different reasons. And the third book is good for different reasons. So it's like a little small spectrum. They're all murder mysteries. They're all got the same characters. And then you get to see, like Deanna is saying, oh, these two start out over here, but they end up over here by book 6. I want to see how that evolution takes place. So there's no wrong way to do it. I would say start with Six Sisters, or if you're the OCD type, I must read them in order. Grab Double Blind, grab the first one in the series.
Have ideas ever jumped out at you in the middle of reading
In the middle of reading?
or writing?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because let's suppose I'm writing, say I got an outline, and I said, this is where we're eventually going to go unless I come up with something better. Well, that means as I'm writing it, I go, oh, you know what would be great is if this happened instead. Then it's like, okay, well, that changes. Now we were going to go over here, now we're going to go over here. That's fine. Then I just, change my outline and keep cruising, because I'm not locked into that. It's like, if nothing else happens, this is a good story. If I get a better idea that's going to make the better story, I go with it. One example is in A Place of Shadows. I got about halfway through or a little more, and I was like, oh, what would be really good is if there was a hurricane going on when the big confrontation scenes. That would make it way more dramatic. I'm like, but I'm 2/3 of the way through. You can't just add a hurricane. So I said, well, okay, let's go back and I'll reread the whole thing. And everywhere where the weather would play a role, if he goes out to his car, I'll say it's raining. Or if he's sitting around in a coffee shop, I'll have the TV in the background talking about Hurricane so-and-so is coming. And it wasn't that difficult to add it in and build it up a little bit. Hurricanes, you have like 10 days, 2 weeks of here it comes, here it comes. So it wasn't that hard to go back in and build it in to where when I finally needed it, it was there and it made sense and it fit, and I think it added a lot. What does it say here? It's by a Brittany joining us. Hi, Brittany. By a non-giant author. I do video, Amazon, blog. There you go. This is all I ask. That's awesome right there. And when you say you do video, Amazon. So here's the thing. Book talkers do book talk, and that's awesome, and that's very effective. But ultimately, Amazon, if there's more reviews on Amazon, that's more helpful. So I might have 50 people talking about Double Blind on, or Six Sisters, the most recent Double Blind story, talking about it here. Most of those 50 didn't go over and leave a review on Amazon. It would be hugely helpful if they did. And I think there's a way you can link those reviews to your videos. So never a bad thing. It's not the author. Hey, it's my marketing guru. Good to see you. Welcome aboard. Other friends joining. Good to see everybody. Now, I got to ask you, do the quick taparoo, tap that screen. And then if you want, I think if you tap on Amber's side, you switch over to her feed, and you can tap her screen too. So you can tap me and then you can tap her. It's like oil well. You got to tap it. Got to tap that thing. If you want to ask us some questions, go ahead. Feel free. She's having the extravaganza. I've joined hers. So there may be questions happening over there. Obviously, my questions are happening on my side. People who are following me, I can see your questions. And I feel like it does more if I have a review on Amazon. Yes, it does. It does. Book Talk is huge. Don't get me wrong. But it's not a book selling platform. People, excuse me, people add links. Like I think I have links I should check where you can click on it and go. But Amazon is a selling platform. So if you leave a review there, it's going to connect with a lot more people, and it's just helpful. So she's back.
So sorry about that. Just a minute ago, for some reason, my live froze and I had to reset everything.
So you back? You're back live on yours, and I'm back co-hosting.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was that froze it, but I was like frozen like this in the screen, and I was like trying to push buttons to try to get it to reset, and it wouldn't reset. So I was like, you know what? I'll just reset the app and then come back in. And so
well, the internet is tricky. For a minute. I heard that the internet is like a water pipe. And if all your neighbors are home and they're all running their showers, there's just going to be less water that can get to your house. If there nobody else is home in your neighborhood, you get the full force of the whole water. And so the bandwidth thing is they deliver a certain amount of bandwidth to your neighborhood, but it doesn't mean all that bandwidth is always at your house. And if something else is going on, which 3 in the afternoon, hard to say, but I had a neighbor who ran a business from his home, and he used to do these compiling reports, and it would like zap. We knew when he was doing it. Sometimes he'd do it in the morning, sometimes in the evening. I'd be sitting here trying to do something like, God, our internet is slow as heck. And I'd go outside and happen to run into him. He's like, yeah, I was doing some compiling yesterday. I was like, what time did you do it? Oh, 3 o'clock. Yeah, I couldn't get any internet. He's like, well, we usually do it at 3 in the morning, but when there's a glitch, we got to do it manually, and it takes an hour, and it sucks up all the bandwidth. I was like, oh, there you go. So
I don't know what happened. My husband does work from home, so that might be a reason why I froze. Because he's at work right now. So
he's going to work. I thought he was leaving.
No, he works for Summit Racing, which is a company that sells car parts, racing and regular parts, to any of those car enthusiasts who like to build their own cars, or even just a regular consumer who needs something to fix their vehicle or whatever. He sells all types of parts through there, but he does it from home. He's been working for this company for, I'm going to say, almost 2 years now, and it's one of his favorite jobs. He used to have his own mechanic shop. So
he's on that stuff. That's awesome.
He's one of their top sellers. So anyways, next question. What do you think makes a great book?
So typically for me, it's interesting characters that I'm going to want to spend time with, first and foremost. And then you got to put them on some little kind of an adventure where it's a compelling situation, right? So let's suppose you have two really interesting characters and they just sit down at a coffee shop and talk. Well, it'll be interesting for a while, but overall it's going to probably lose everybody's interest after a while. On the other hand, let's suppose you have two people, you really cardboard cutouts, and you put them on the edge of a cliff with a bunch of Nazis shooting at them. It's kind of like, get killed, don't get killed. I'm not sure I care. So if you have a couple of characters you really are invested in, and you, as Kurt Vonnegut says, put them up a tree and throw rocks at them, everybody's on board with that story. And so that's the big thing for me. And the main reason why is I'm going to ask people to spend hours with these characters. They need to be people they're going to want to spend time with. Even if it's Ashley Wells, who you spend time with because you hate her so much, you have to watch her because you can't trust that snake for 5 minutes. And then when she does what you're hating her to do, you're like, I knew she was going to do something awful.
Well, but, the way I see it is a book is like your favorite TV show. Yeah. You're waiting next week until the next episode comes out, and you got the anticipation, and you just want to read the next chapter.
And you get to put a lot of that TV show together. So I create the characters, but you imagine what they look like. I say she's wearing a blue dress. You get to imagine what the blue dress looks like. And maybe I give you a few details, but how bright of a blue, dark blue, whatever, a lot of that comes from you. When you watch TV show, they decide who the camera's going to be on or what that character looks like or if they have a southern accent. In the book, you get to decide all those things. So you're much more involved in the process.
Do any of your friends who are authors, have they ever helped you become a better writer?
Yeah. When I first started out, I was writing stories, people read them, and this one guy in this Facebook authors group, he said, you should join a critique group. And I was like, a bunch of people who all suck, telling each other how great they are. I don't think so. He goes, you're smart enough, you'll find the suckers who are doing that, but you can seek out the better writers and ask them to look at your stuff, which is what I did. I joined an online critique group, expecting fully to just be everybody say, oh, I'm the best thing in the world. That they would all say that about themselves when they write crappy stuff. And people did do that. And there were trolls in that. It was because it was a huge community. So what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to post some stories. And I got some feedback. And then I would look at the person giving me feedback. I would go read their story. How much have they published? What are their stories like? And if I didn't like the way they wrote, or if I didn't think they were successful enough, typically though, if I just didn't like the way they wrote, I'm like, you don't get to pass judgment over me. I don't like how you write. And it wasn't a, oh, you didn't like me, so I don't like you. It was, I want the input. I want to get better. So then what I did was I found people, I just started reading all different genres in the critique group, which you can do. And I found like 5, 6, 10 writers. I was like, this person's amazing. By the way, this one amazing person never, ever, ever published. Ever. Like after 5 years, had still never published, was never going to publish. I have a friend in there. She wrote this amazingly beautiful romantic story about these troubled brothers, and the girl falls for the guy, and he's just got all kinds of problems, and she keeps trying to save him. And oh, it was such a beautiful story. She rewrote it and she rewrote it, and I'm like, no, publish that thing, man. It's good. And so publish your story. Do not deprive the world of your story. But so in there, I sought out other authors. I said, I think what you wrote is great. I've read 3 or 4 of your things here. Would you mind having a look at mine? Now, here's how that works, because I have a sales manager background. It's like, let's suppose I go and I read 10 different authors' stuff that I like. So maybe I had to go through 30 authors to find 10 whose stuff I really liked. Then they have a way to contact. And I say, I really love this, that. I loved how you did this with this character. And I give them the details so they know, oh, this guy did read it. I say, would you care to look at mine? I'd love your input on my thing. If I send that to 10 people, 1/3 never going to reply. 1/3, hey, thanks, I'm busy. And 1/3 might. And of those 3 now that reply, 1 or 2 may actually develop, some kind of relationship. So, numbers game. I want 10 people who are good writers, who I respect, who I admire, who write good stuff, who have the time and inclination to work with me, help me, and will do it. Maybe I had to contact 100 people to get 5 or 6 that did that. But then you got your core. And we would write, we would read each other's stuff, chapter by chapter. We're all keeping up with each other's things. And eventually, I just decided I don't need the critique group anymore. I just got these 5. Let's, pick the best 2 or 3 from there, maybe 2 more, and just do it. And some of them are relatively famous, USA Today best-selling authors, good authors, popular authors. And we all worked together. And then at a certain point, it was like, I know what they're going to say. As I'm writing the chapter, I'm like, I know what so-and-so is going to say about this. And she's going to be right. So I just need to set it aside and tomorrow come back and change it the way she would tell me to change it anyway. Now, she's not writing the story for me. She's just saying, this is a little long here. This is too much dialogue here. This is too much description here. And I know. And then when I go back and I read it with like a fresh pair of eyes the next day, I'm like, it is a little dull. Can we describe the house instead of 5 paragraphs? Can we do it in 5 sentences? Can we do it like in 2 sentences? Do we have to describe the house? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
By the same token, we were critique partners for each other or editing for each other. And I would say, I like this, I like that. It may be more dramatic where this character meets their end. What if, and I'll give an example, the character was kind of an alcoholic, was a jerk. And I'm like, what if the alcohol played a role? Like he stuffed his jacket full of stolen booze, and then as he's in this problem area, he's literally hanging by his fingers, and the rescuers are trying to rescue him, but he's got so much alcohol on him that he can't hold himself up long enough for them to get there, and like that. So just little things. Or I was talking to one of them in one of my stories, I won't say which one, and I was like, well, I got this ending, it's a good ending, blah, blah, blah. But wouldn't it be cool if she got away? And it was like, oh, it would be cool. I'm like, I can do that. Now, they didn't suggest it, but I was talking to them, and I was like, oh, this might be fun. And I was like, I wouldn't even have to change that much. And I went back and I said, I got to address this here and put these clues in here. And now this whole thing can work. And it was way better. So we all helped each other. But like I said, at this point, if you work with somebody, you know what they're going to say. If you've been working with them for a couple of years, you know what they're going to say. And it's like, they're all just right here on my shoulder. It's like, there's a lot of dialogue in this and not a lot happening. It's like, okay, trim the dialogue. Or there's a lot of description here and you need to get back to the action. Or when you jump back and forth too many times, So it's like, they're all on my shoulder telling me still. And I usually put that in my dedication. It's like, some of these people I don't even talk to anymore. It's been years since I talked to them, but they're still right on my shoulder telling me, I like this, I'm not going to like that. So.
Yeah. What is your favorite underappreciated novel?
The Italian Assistant with Sam and Mike and all that, because I worked on this is another one of those, like I was saying earlier. I worked on it for a long time and I shelved it because when you're done writing something, you're very close to it. You're close to it. You're not going to see your mistakes and stuff. So I had learned where if I write a chapter today, I feel good about it. That's the first thing I read tomorrow. And then I fill in the parts that are kind of missing. Like, oh, I know I meant this, but I didn't say it. So I got to fatten it out a little bit or cut it back a little bit. Then when I'm all done, I read the whole book start to finish because now it's been a few weeks since I read that first chapter. I want to be sure everything, there's no dull parts or anything like that. With the Italian assistant, I let it sit for 3 months. I didn't look at it for 3 months. I knew it was a masterpiece, right? Then I come in and I read it and I'm like, I had forgotten some of the things I put in there. And I'm like, this is great. Oh my gosh, I'm a genius. And I put it out and it did nothing, crickets. And still to this day, if I can get somebody to pick it up and read it, they usually love it. But it was just one of those deals where it's like, wait, Dan writes murder mysteries. Now you got this romance. It's very funny, but it's too funny to be a romance and it's too sexy to be a comedy and it was just impossible to market. But for the people who do read it, they like it a lot. So totally, in my opinion, underappreciated.
I
And
have that one. I haven't read it yet. It is one on my TBR list. It's
so
just I've gotten a couple arcs recently that are due really soon, so I'm trying to get those out.
so that's the deal, right? It's like I wrote what I thought was a great story, and a lot of people agree. It was just the marketing was hard to do. And at the outset, a lot of people were like, what's funny about death? What's funny about infidelity? What's funny about this, that, and the other? It's like nothing until you realize there's something funny about everything. And, you know, when you're having a comedy, I mean, romantic comedies are a big thing, but when you have a comedy, it's like, well, should it get so serious and doing all these things? It was like, yeah, why not? And so, you know, there was both elements. But like I said, for the people who pick it up, the Italian assistant, you're going to laugh, you're going to cry, you're going to have a great time, you're going to think thoughts, and it's an awesome story. But in my opinion, very underappreciated. When I released that thing, I thought for sure this one's going to blow the doors off, and it was just crickets.
Um, I just have one, and I can't even find. Um, I don't know where it's at. Anyways, um, what is your found to in marketing when you've marketed your books? What's the best way you've found that you've gotten a lot of people who've bought your books?
Well, my marketing lady is on here, and she's like, here's a comment. Dan, revisit it, market it here on Book Talk. She's like the one that was underappreciated. She's so full of great ideas. But so let's suppose you were a winemaker. You got to grow a good grape. You got to make sure it doesn't get too hot, too cold. You got to protect your grapes. Then you got to crush those grapes properly. Then you got to make a wine out of them properly. Then if you do all those things right, and only if you do all these things right, nobody still drinks your wine because nobody knows the wine exists. You also now have to be a great marketer. That is a lot of different hats to wear. I am terrible at picking cover designs. Terrible. The worst. Here's one. See this? That's a good looking book cover. I did not pick it. I have somebody who asks me, what's the book about? Like, give me 5 sentences. And I say, it's about this, that. And they come up with a couple of ideas and I go, I will pick one, but let me do this instead. I'll email it to my Readers Club people and I'll let all 5 choices. And the one I would pick
Give me 1
inevitably
second.
gets the fewest votes. So I'm terrible about that. Terrible marketer. Now, I got on TikTok a long time ago and nobody ever watched any of my TikToks. And then a marketing person said, you should talk to the readers, not the other authors. And I was like, oh, what a neat idea. Why would they want to talk to me? It's like, they just do. You're the magician on stage, they want to know how the act works. So I told this story, I don't know how many times over the last 3 or 4 weeks. I said, okay. I sat there, whatever day it was, Sunday morning, Saturday, it was Saturday, a Saturday morning, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I reached out and I went to the handful of new followers that I'd gotten over the month or whatever. And I said, hi, I want to introduce myself to all my new book friends that I'm making, bookish friends, I think I said. And I go, you know, I write this, that. What kind of genres do you like to read? And like the third one I sent that message to was Book Talk Woman. And she replied, and she's like, oh, I do this, that. And we start talking. She was like, I'm having so much fun talking to you. I'll do a promotion for you or something. I'm like, oh, great. I keep on interacting with a few other people. Next thing you know, I'm talking to somebody, messaging back and forth in TikTok. And that person goes, hey, Book Talk Woman is talking about your book. She's doing the live thing. I was like, oh, I should go check it out. As in, I should go say, hi, I heard you were talking about my book. Thank you. So I go over and I say, I heard you were talking about my book. Thank you. I comment like you guys are commenting. And she goes, oh my God, USA Today bestselling author Dan Alatorre is commenting. I'm dead. I'm dead. I died. You know how she is. So then I'm like, would you like me to join you on your live thing? She's like, he wants to join. So boom, next thing you know, I'm side by side, me and her. And we had the best time. It was 40 minutes. It went by like 2 minutes. She was asking questions of me, but she was taking questions from people who were commenting. And then she was like, literally from that and a couple other things. And then Hannah did a promotional thing with me. I met her and we were talking. Next thing you know, 1,000 people are following me that weren't following me before. And it was like, holy cow, that's fun. So talk to the readers. They want to know some of these things. So that's what I did. And I just got to tell you, it was one of those things where so obvious in hindsight, so completely not obvious at the time. Because I'm sitting there thinking, they don't want to talk to me. What am I going to talk about? Hey, you never heard of me. Do you want to talk? I mean, that's awkward. And when you add up, most authors are introverts, most readers are introverts. It's like, here's two people who don't want to talk to each other because neither one of them wants to talk to anybody. So it just was kind of like that. And things just kind of took off. So I just listened to my marketing people. And I'm not a great marketer, but, every once in a while I accidentally step in the right direction and things work out. So.
What's the hardest scene you've ever written?
Okay, there were two. One in Five Sparrows, one of the double-blind books. It was a very hard book to write because it deals with a grade school kid getting killed, and that's just a tough. I have a grade school kid. I don't like to think about bad things happening to children. But because I watched a story about bullying where this kid got basically kind of sort of bullied to death. It was years ago, and it's not related at all to what I wrote about, but that stuck in me. I was like, there was an injustice. You can't fix that. The kid is dead. You can't fix the dead. And I said, I want to write a story about that because it was bothering me. So I thought if it bothers me, I'll write it in such a way it'll bother other people. But I made it to where there was, a victorious ending, justice served kind of ending, and in a good way. It's like served cold. And so I that topic's been addressed before in movies and things, but I thought I took a different take on it, a unique look at it. And so there were scenes in there that were very hard to write. I said, what would be the hardest thing? Your kid is dead, so you're the parent. The hardest thing, seeing the other children. And not so much as seeing them like and hating they're alive and my kid is dead, but like my kid used to play with those kids and everybody's hurting, that kind of thing. So I wrote a scene in the school. I purposely wrote what I knew was going to be a hard scene. I wrote a scene, the school, they had like an assembly, a memorial service, right? Not a funeral, a memorial service. And I had the kid's best friend go up and try to read something and she can't get through it. She's choked up and like she finishes, just like really quickly finishes and runs off to the bathroom in tears. That was really hard to write. There were another scene, another segment of a book that was really hard to write was there was something that was going to happen. I mean, you have to kill people, but it's like, I don't like that person, so I kill them, or I don't know them, so they get killed, because it's that kind of a book. Hard to have a murder mystery without a murder. But there was some personal interactions between characters that were going to happen, and that I like these characters. I don't want bad things to happen to them, especially on a personal level. But I had to write it, and I had to make sure it read real, so I had to spend a long time working on it, and that sucked. But the hardest one was in The Italian Assistant. Mike cheats on his wife. And in the end, I wanted him to get back with his wife. There was a romance, a very passionate romance, a great love story. but it was going to have a tragic ending of one aspect of it and a great ending to another aspect of it. And I knew all that. And I said, why would his wife let him back? Why would she do that? Because she basically caught him in the middle of it. And I said, okay. And I went and I researched it and I said, what are the odds? Is that likely, not likely? And there were Oprah episodes done about it and Dr. Phil, lots of online interviews, not interviews, but, and at the end of the day, it was like, you had so many people who were like, break up and never look at the guy again. Other were like, take him back because blah, blah, blah. There were, let's say, 5 different approaches to when that happens, how to deal with it. And I couldn't figure out how the happy ending was going to be got back with his wife. So I couldn't figure out why she would do it. So I had to spend all this research on, okay, now I know that it can be done. How am I going to do it in such a way that any one of those 5 aspects has their constituency? So the break up with him constituency, the take him back constituency, the do this, the do that, go to therapy. Everybody had for lack of better phrasing. So I said, okay, I'll have Sam and her sit down at the table and discuss all 5 of those options through what is partly a hilarious scene and partly tragic. And at the end, they've run everybody else out of the restaurant and it's the servers sitting down with them and they're all getting drunk. And Sam turns to her and says, what are you going to do? And she goes, I don't know. And I knew that was the key because at the end of the day, it was her decision. It wasn't all these other people's decision. It was hers. But I knew I had to address the concerns of every different contingency. I couldn't just gloss over any viewpoint on that before I moved on and let her make her decision. And that worked. But it took me 2 weeks to figure that out. And what I was doing while I was stuck on that was I was writing other scenes that were going to happen in the story anyway. That was 100% the hardest scene I ever had to write. 2 weeks to figure out one scene, what is basically one chapter, maybe a chapter and a half. It took me 2 weeks. Yeah, that was definitely 100% the hardest. We getting a tour of the house?
I let the dogs out, so I had to go close the door because the air conditioner kicked on because of how cold it is outside. I don't have a dog door yet, so.
Yeah, well, one day maybe, right?
Oh, I have the door. I just don't have it installed because I don't have a fence that's built enough to not have to sit there and watch them.
Well, they're big dogs. I mean, the dog door could let them out, but then raccoons could come in. Yeah,
Chloe.
It's a small lion right there.
Chloe, hi.
Is that German Shepherd?
Yeah.
That's a sweet
She's
looking
my
dog.
rescue.
Oh,
Her
yeah?
name is Chloe.
She seems very sweet. Looks very sweet. Pretty eyes.
I don't have to worry about raccoons because I actually live in Las Vegas, so about the only thing you probably get in here is a mouse or a rat.
Rattlesnake, maybe?
No, I live like inner city, so I wouldn't even get snake.
Well, so did we burn through all your questions? Did everybody get their questions asked that they wanted to ask?
If there's anyone who wants to ask a question, go ahead and add a comment.
Bring it. This is your chance. Oh, here's somebody says, no rats, scorpions. You get scorpions out there in Vegas?
Oh, yeah. I live closer to the mountains, though, so I don't get... It's inner city, but it's inner city Henderson, which is still part of Las Vegas. So it's like big, humongous. Everything's like kind of interconnecting. It's like when you have small town, and then they just start growing so big, it becomes one big town. Yes, Chloe, I see you.
So I got a couple of comments here. People are talking back and forth. It's so funny. So like, I'm talking to you, so I answer your question. I still hate this shirt. I think I'm going to burn it when this is over. This is like the ugliest color. But so they're talking back and forth to each other. I'm kind of scrolling through the comments. I'm like, what book are they talking about? Is he making a Valentine's Day box? Why isn't that book in there? I'm like, we decided 2 books and we decided the 2 we decided, and that's it. The decision is made. But here's what you can do.
Maybe you should talk about it.
Just buy the box and then slip that book in there. Buy the book and slip it in, and you can just pretend it was in there. Why wait till Valentine's Day to read it? Read it now. It's a good book.
You know what I think is the problem with the way you look and how you keep having issues?
Tell me.
I think it might be your lighting
Could be.
because I have bright white lighting, whereas yours seems like a soft amber or soft white.
You know what it is?
So
It's
it
I
gives it
have the
more of
ring.
a
What's the other
duller
thing?
red tone.
What's the ring light? I look red today. Oh, look, I got a cowboy hat. Yippee-ki-yay. Who sent me that? Let's see. Taylor Elizabeth sent me a hat and mustache. I do like that. I always encourage everybody to don't spend your money on the TikToky things, but bang the like button. That's cheap and free, and it apparently does good things. But I gotta admit, as bad as I look in hats in real life, and that mustache would never work in real life, I get a kick out of seeing that thing pop on. I guess that's one they did a good job of. I was wearing glasses the other day.
Oh, look at that.
I guess during the New Year's Live thing, somebody put the 2024 glasses on me or something. That was kind of cute. Oh, and there you go. She got the #1 glitter badge. Wow, you are the champion. You're #1. Congratulations. Here we go. Good grief. That's a huge dog. Is this Chloe again?
Yep, this is
She's
Chloe.
big. Now, how does she do with all that with that big fur coat in Las Vegas?
We brush her, but she's mostly indoors. She loves being outdoors. But I don't keep her outdoors because out here in the summer, it's 120 degrees. I would not leave any dog out there, and I've seen so many people, being a mail carrier, I've seen so many people leave their dogs in their yards in the middle of the summer and give them one tiny bowl of water.
That's rough. Listen, anywhere in summer, because they're wearing a fur coat. So listen, one of the things we're talking about, the lighting. One of the things is I got a ring light. It wasn't mine. My wife got it for my daughter. My daughter was doing dance videos and stuff. And it holds the camera upright, which is cool. So I steal it and I stick it on my desk. And then whenever I would turn it on, it would wash me out. I'd be a ghost because I'm up against these dark books and bookcases and stuff. And it just didn't work too well. So I was like, well, I think for the most part, when we appear on screen, it's like your flesh tones are lighter, mine a little darker. If I put the ring light on, I turn into a ghost, and I could never get it right, especially if I was wearing a dark shirt. Could never get it right. So I got an interview by like a video interview by WordPress, right? So they come in, they bring this director and all these things, they bring all these cameras, and this guy, he goes outside and he puts a light outside my window, has me pull the shade shut, and he goes, "We're going to put a light through this window, shining on this side of you and the books and this that." Then he brings another light and he sticks it over here. And it was a red light. It's that here, and that's lighting up the books. And because this is what he does, so he knows. He goes, and we're going to have a light on you from the front. We're going to have this side light, which you can see a little bit. This is why, right? That's the light hitting my face there. So that part was done like that with this big umbrella, a light looking in the umbrella through the shade. And he's getting all this stuff set up. The red light lit up the books. And what it did was it in reality, I'm thinking it's going to create more contrast. Like the books are well lit, I'm well lit, or less contrast, I guess. But what they did was they set it up to where the light that was hitting me was addressing me, and then the background with the books was way darker. So this is kind of balanced because that's what the phone does. The phone balances it out. This one, it just said, okay, you're going to be lighter, that's going to be darker, and I look like me in that. And sometimes when, depending on how much sunlight's coming in, more light comes in, I look okay. But then the phone will adjust. Like after 30 seconds, it'll adjust, and I get all washed out because it's looking at the books and it's too dark. So it says we got to lighten this up. So
Well,
it's just
you
for the
see
beach.
how right now it's redder,
Yeah,
the whole frame.
yeah. And your
So
ceiling's all white, right?
my whole everything's peach in here. I don't like
What I
it.
meant was, I think
But
it was like
now
skylight or something.
you see how it's brighter, more brighter. So these are bright white lights. The other ones were the soft, warm amber lights.
Yeah, that's
The
probably
Christmas
what I got
tree?
from chandelier.
And that's why I think that's why you look so like almost faded with your amberish light. And all you'd have to do is go in and change your light bulb out in your room.
Well, the ring light has a white light on it, and it can be brighter or less. It's just whenever I turn it on, I'm telling you, the camera looks at me and then it looks at that, and then all of a sudden it goes, "This is the overall picture's too dark," and it tries to lighten that stuff up so you can see it, and I end up washed out.
Well, see, right now I have the computer on, which is all white because I have all of my pages up with the questions. So, but for
There's a way
those
to
of
fix
you
it.
who
We'll
don't
figure it out
know,
one
and
day.
those of you on Dan's page, this month for me is Author Appreciation Month slash 5K Schmiveaway. So, our next author interview, and let me see, is going to be on the 7th with Chloe Knight,
Okay.
6 p.m. Pacific time. I wrote all of mine on Pacific time because it was too hard to keep track of Eastern, Pacific. And then we do have a bunch that are coming from GMT or whatever time it is, London.
Yeah, Greenwich Mean Time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but what you do is you put it in there and you say it's Pacific time, California, whatever you want to call it, and then everybody knows to do the math because we all know if it's 5 o'clock in New York, it's 3 hours earlier in California. We know that. So my Irish friend when he Andrew when he says, "Okay, I'm going to do it at 10 p.m." I'm like, "Well, it's 10 p.m. So subtract five, so it's 5 p.m. here, okay, or 7 hours or whatever it is." Or Simone, same deal. It's like subtract 7 hours and there we are. They can figure
Yeah.
it out. But if you put the countdown, the countdown thingy on there, it
Oh,
adjusts.
I do. Um, um, I put it in as 11 o'clock Pacific because I'm Pacific. I live in Nevada. So,
You
but
roll it that way. Everybody else can do the math.
yeah. Um, so this is the book we're talking about in the next interview.
Excellent.
Chloe Knight's The Immortal Curse. This is the book she sent me for her interview slash her donation. And Dan has decided that depending on who wins, they get a choice. What, Six Sisters or what?
So what we
Probably.
said was, we'll make the prize a signed paperback copy of Six Sisters, and that's easier to just say that's the prize. But then if you win the prize and you're like, "I already read Six Sisters," or "I don't want to read Six Sisters, I'd rather read, The Watercast or something," just say so. No big deal. And if there's a different book you want to read of mine, I'd be stupid to make, "No, no, you have to read this one." So it's that. The prize is basically a signed copy of one of my books, but the one we're doing is Six Sisters. But if the day comes and the winner is picked and they're like, "Oh, I already read it," yeah, trade it out for something else. No big deal. It's coming from here. I got to send it, so there'll be plenty of time to get that stuff figured out.
Oh yeah, and the winner is not going to be picked until I reach 5K. So
Now,
the
what are you
the
at right now?
entry
What's your
post
number?
is pinned in my profile.
So what's your number right now, more or less? Number of phone.
33,000, I think 400 is where I'm at.
So very close. You could easily get there over a couple of weeks. And your goal is, do you have a goal date to reach it by?
I would like to reach it by February 1st.
I think you will.
And I do have, but if it's a little after that, that's okay. The entries will stay open until I reach 5K. But I do also have a couple books that do not come out until February. So depending on the author, it might be an art copy or the actual copy by the time we reach the 5K. We'll see what happens over the time. But we have a total of 24 author interviews.
And everybody's contributing something, right?
Everyone has contributed something. So the books are, we have Shauna, the author, who's donating Pull of the Moon. Tara Jade Brown is either donating Swift Escape or The Descendants of Earth, which is a trilogy. Layla Douglas is donating Locked. Angela Van Limpt, sorry if I pronounce it wrong, is donating Seeking Heavens and Wandering Souls. Jolene Gelter is donating Vampire Deception. Alicia Robinson, who actually the book is under her pen name, but it's His Fairy Princess. Mel, who I found as an ARC, she's also a mail carrier. She is donating The Descendants of Merlin, which, if you would like to know about it, it is in my profile. Most of these books I do have one video in my profile that shows you most of all the books that are being donated.
Right.
So, and then we have Blake Gallows is donating Fated Unkindness. Evie Devine is donating Christmas Stocking Chloe. It's her first book, so she's very, very new to Book Talk. So if you could, part of the requirements is to follow everyone, but I can't tag everyone. It only lets me tag 15 and I have 24. So it gets hard to get all of the authors in there. I do have a post with all the authors. You can click on each and every one and follow. And then we have Jasmine Wallace, who is giving you a choice of The Demon's Choice or The Christmas Trap. Then we have Chloe Knight, who's donating The Immortal Curse. C.R. Johnson, who is donating You Broke Me First. Then we have J.C. Fuller, who is donating The Push or Black Bear Alibi. We have S.K. Presley, who is donating a PR box.
Cool.
Mackenzie Faith, she is an ARC I'm also doing. Her book does not come out until February, I think, 28th. It's called A Song in the Dark. John S. Lee, he's donating The Nova System. G.W. Cole is donating a signed copy of The Rotten Fruit. Ruby Sparks is donating Mystic Hearts, and she's donating 1 paperback and 4 ebooks.
Nice.
Sarah Cook, she is donating The Diary of Murderers. Kristen Ward is donating Dark is the Woods. Tess Waters is donating Over the Moon, a part of her trilogy Styrie Cove series. It's the first book in her series, which I've read and reviewed. It's a really good book. It's spicy. So, and then we have C.A. Varian, who is donating Saving Scarlet. And C.A. Greco, if I said that name wrong, please forgive me, is donating Unbreak Me. So those are the list of books that I have. I have an interview for each and every one, except for Blake Gallows. Right now, we're waiting on her work schedule to come in before we set a date on that. But the 5K Schmivway entry post is posted on my page. We are doing 1 international giveaway and 4 US giveaways. So
do you like have a grand prize winner that wins all the books or something?
I was thinking of doing 1 grand prize US winner, 1 international winner, and then the 3 wishlist / ebook winner. So
it's a big book haul for somebody.
But if someone already has one of the books, all they have to do is DM me, and I will gift it to one of their commented friends.
Well, I think that is a heck of a thing to have going on for the month. I don't think you're going to go the whole month because I think you're going to get there way you're going to get to 5,000 way before them. But it's a great idea. And to have so many authors is always fun. You've got a wide range of genres, so something to appeal for everybody. And the winner's going to end up with a ton of books, which is amazing. So I think you're all set. I think it's going to be, you're going to be exhausted. It's like the Jerry Lewis telethon. You're going to be exhausted by the time the end of the month rolls here from talking to authors.
Well, most of the authors I have set up are going to be on my days off, and I do, on some days, I have multiple authors in the same day. So yeah, it will be exhausting to have them on my days off, but that gives me my days after I get off of work to catch up on everything else I need to do. So
you're reaching out, you're talking to the people. Obviously, there's questions you're going to take from others. You get to ask things you want to know, and they get to share things they want people to know. But when you do 24 or however many it's going to be, there's something for everybody there, either in the interview, in the book, in the process. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching this go on. And I think by the end of it, you're going to have no voice left, but from talking to everybody. But I think you'll be to 5,000 definitely before the end of January.
Huh? Is there a question you want to ask?
Fire away. We're all friends here.
Huh?
You said fire away.
Woodchuck could chuck wood.
Well, there's a bunch of people asking questions over here on this. So Winkler's Twinkles has asked if there's a hardback version of the Water Castle. There is not. I was literally going to put one together for the person who's making that really ornate one, but they grabbed a paperback and are going to town on that. There was a couple other questions. I'm not going to clog up this session with that. So we're gonna come up on the 2-hour mark here in a second anyway, so we probably need to break it off soon. But I'll probably jump it back. You can always DM me a question, and I'll be jumping back on live here after I go run some errands. I got to take some book mail down to the post office, so I'll be back on. Don't worry about that. And everybody, if you would, jump over, register for this thing. It's going to blow the doors off. It's going to be an amazing month-long thing, but I don't think it's going to go the whole month. I think it's going to get there way, way sooner. And think about it. 24 authors donating prizes. That's a big book haul. There's just a lot of stuff there. So it's going to be a good time.
Not
Amber,
all of them.
thank you very much for inviting me. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Oh, I had a lot of fun and learned a lot of interesting things. So it was great talking to you, and I can't wait to start interviewing some more people and getting their inputs. I will be posting a post for every single author that has the image of their book, possibly the blurb, because if they only have one book, I can't do like a whole video spiel on it. Those are the entry posts for any questions you have for that author. So make sure that you are posting questions that you have, because when you get me the questions before the interviews, it makes it easier, and we don't have to sit here and pay attention to every single comment, because sometimes they go by way too fast for us to keep up on them.
Well, my people know that I start talking and I'm not reading the comments, and they're going by and they'll start typing, Dan. So having somebody like yourself also on screen, it's like your people got to ask some questions, my people got to ask some, but my people have already figured out he's not good at reading the screen. But
if your people
trying to do better
and ask the questions, I can actually read them off to you as they come by, because you're the one talking. I'm just here to ask the questions for all the readers. So on our next live, if you're on my page, you can come over and ask the question that you want to ask Dan, and I will read it.
Jump back and forth. They can switch over to you, ask a question, switch back over to me. They can do whatever they want.
Oh yeah, because I can sit here. I was sitting here and reading my comments. I was even commenting back the whole time you were talking. Like anytime someone gifted me something, anytime someone had a question and it was on my side, I can't see your side, but I can see my side. So if they jump over to my side and ask me the question, then I can ask you the question, because then you can focus on answering them and giving us great information.
Getting a lot of compliments. They're saying you did a great job. Great job, everyone. Just scrolling through some of these. This one says, "It's a joy to listen to you." This one says, "Still waiting for her book now." You had to slip that in, huh? Do I control the mail? I do not.
You make
We already
people
used some more.
impatient, Dan.
Usually I tell them when oh, here's one. Oh, well, that actually, I don't know what that one's talking about. It was asking about is going to be international, but you had mentioned your thing is partly international, but this may actually be about something else. Good job, guys. So lots of kudos all the way around, and we got a lot of hearts clicked over here, so we're doing good.
I
Well,
only
listen,
got
like I said, it was
7,000
great
over
talking to
here.
you. Wish you well for all the rest of the interviews you're going to do, and thanks a lot for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. 1-7, everyone. 6 p.m. Pacific is our next interview. I will see you then.
All righty, bye
And
bye.
happy reading.